We're in this.
Hello, welcome. Hello, Facebook family. My name is Jennifer Anaya Applegate, and I have my little son here, Mason. And actually, let me move this camera down just a little bit so that he, pardon me, can be seen. Hi, Cecilia. Hopefully my camera is not sideways. Turns out my phone was on portrait and not landscape. Oops. So anyways, I am the team facilitator for training and programs. So I go into the schools, hi Linda, and deliver this amazing and groundbreaking content of sexual education to the kids so far. And we're also going to be training adults on how to talk to their kids and how to talk to the schools, just as part of the Magic of Psalm 501c nonprofit. So today on Happy Friday night, it's a perfect night to talk about affirmative consent Friday night right before the weekend, and also setting healthy boundaries. So I definitely thought that Mason, me being a mother, obviously this is my 10-year-old, being a mother, affirmative consent is actually a really huge deal. And especially me putting things on Mason as far as getting his consent for actions, and then teaching him, especially as a young man. I get to raise a boy, and then soon to be another one coming into this world, on definitely what affirmative consent is. Hi, Carissa. So especially mothers and teachers, educators, just in anything really, we need consent when it comes to any type of relationship, whether it is a sexual relationship, a friendship, parenthood. So I wanted to go in straight into this with teaching you guys a little bit about affirmative consent. And so I'm going to read to you guys the description of what, like the textbook description. And this is based on California law. So in California law, affirmative consent is a knowing, voluntarily, and mutual decision among all participants to engage in sexual activity. So obviously, not with this guy, right? You! So consent can be given by words, actions, and those actions create clear permission regarding willingness to engage in this sexual activity. Silence or lack of resistance in and of itself does not demonstrate consent. The definition of consent does not vary based upon a participant's sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. So there's a lot of things that go into affirmative consent. One of the main things to focus on is that, especially when it comes to sex, voluntary, right? And then think about as a mother. So if I'm going to be putting my son, and of course, even with affirmative consent, we still want to get consent with so many things with our children. Hi, Shyla. And I know Mr. Mason, he was so excited to be doing this. And so let's say that I take Mason to see his auntie, and she's really loud and is in your face, and she wants to kiss Mason all over, and he's saying, no, I don't want the kisses, and he really means it. And then I'm telling him that he has to kiss his auntie because it's polite, even though he hasn't volunteered and he has not given consent for those actions. So even at a young age, pushing children into these situations will help them or have them develop habits and not have boundaries. And if we don't have boundaries, then we don't have a clear way of expressing what keeps us comfortable, what our container is. I know, he's so cute. And so also the thing, it's a mutual decision. If I push Mason into kissing his auntie, it's not a mutual decision. So this is stuff that we definitely want to keep in mind, especially as parents, whether you have a daughter, a son, I don't know about your dogs, but then again, it's willingness and those other key words, clear permission. Having clear permission to move forward in any type of act. You know, we can go into like sexual activity, we can go into family discussions, or I asked Mason his permission to see if he wanted to be on this Facebook Live with me, and made sure that I had his consent to show his face on camera.
And I said yes.
And he said yes. So, right? Thank God. And so a really big thing too with affirmative consent that we want to teach people is clear permission, and silence or lack of resistance is not consent. So if there's actions going on, it's really interesting because when we're put in a situation that is not comfortable for us, we tend to maybe not be able to verbalize how we're feeling, but we know that we're uncomfortable. And a lot of times we freeze. It's like the responses to an attack. If in the wild, we have our flight, fight, freeze, and there's even fawn, and fawn means to like basically kiss ass. So sometimes just to deflect an uncomfortable situation. So, just as an example, I remember being a young girl that in high school and getting a hug from a cute boy, and he patted me on the butt, and I was not comfortable. I know, right? And I wasn't comfortable with that at all, but I didn't know what to say. I knew I didn't like it, but I froze. And so that happens a lot too especially with what's coming out. Yes, I know, right? Thank you, Mason, for consenting. But what's happening with a lot of these accusations that women are coming out against men and sexual harassment, sexual assault, and even pedophilia. And people are questioning them, saying, why did you wait so long? And if you're in a fear state, if you're frozen, if you've had some type of attack, it doesn't have to be something huge. And it's just how we perceive it. They froze. That got frozen in their body. It got frozen in time. And maybe it took that amount of time to unfreeze that fear so that they could do something about it. It's this natural human response, and we all go through it. And I wanted to share with you some ways that you can know and just determine whether or not you have consent. So again, this does have to do with sex ed. It has to do with just parenting, relationships in general. You want to make eye contact with somebody. If you're going to be engaging in anything, you want to make eye contact, direct eye contact. Let them know, it's not going to be this shifty, say, hey, let's go to the movies and then we can network and chill, or Netflix and chill. We want to have eye contact. You want to make direct eye contact with anything that you're asking anybody to do for you or with you. And then check out facial expressions. Somebody might be smiling. It might be like a Joker face, like, I'm kind of scared. And we can tell those things. We have that intelligence in us. And you want to evaluate their gesture, their stance. Are they crossing their arms? How much personal space do you have in between them? So these are all things that you do just to make sure that you're ensuring that there is affirmative consent. He's getting so heavy. What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get everyone to... I'm trying to move up so that everyone can see me.
Oh, well, maybe, why don't you grab that chair over there and stand on it, and maybe that would be better. See, he totally wants to be seen. And so that's just a really, really important thing you want to do. And then you even want to teach people. So I'm kind of doing this in a way of teaching you what to look for with affirmative consent. But then also, if you're going to be teaching your children these things, if you're going to be teaching, if you're an educator, if you are a yoga teacher, if you're any type of healer, we especially in healing, we want to have affirmative consent big time with, going into people's energy fields. Here, why don't you scoot over just a little bit more? And so just one more thing just to assess when we're looking at affirmative consent is also signs of discomfort. Maybe you're observing somebody in a scenario and you can see that this person is starting to withdraw, or they're blocking again, crossing their arms. You can look at people's feet. Like, he is really consenting. And you look at people's feet. Are they pointed away from you? That's usually like that flight response happening in the body, and we don't even maybe even realize it. But you can start to observe these things. And then neck rubbing, starting to stimulate the nerve endings because you're uncomfortable. Or maybe you might start doing that because sometimes we don't even know that we're uncomfortable. And so, and again, this discomfort comes because of a lack of boundaries. And a lot of times boundaries, oh my goodness, we can go on and on about boundaries, but boundaries are really just a safe container and in a way that we allow ourselves to feel safe. Like the blood in our body needs a container, otherwise it'd be spilling out everywhere. So we have skin, and that is our container. And containers, in an essence, help us feel safe. And so, again, it can be a line, it's a border, and it's a space. Like, we have a boundary right now. A lot of times people will not have clear boundaries in their lives, or maybe they do, but they don't know how to verbalize their boundaries. And that is a really, really big thing, because especially with young children, if they don't have boundaries, I will look up the study, but I read a study that children that don't have boundaries are more likely to be the ones that are kidnapped, and are willing to negotiate their safety. And so just starting at a really young age, we want to make sure that our kids have boundaries, have this container of what they know feels right in their body and what doesn't feel right, and then how to speak it and how to present it to the world so that they feel safe. And so, certain examples of boundaries are, maybe you like it when your friends call before they show up to your house, or, I love hugs, but if it's somebody that I don't know, if they shake my hand and pull me in, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do. We get off. But that crossed a boundary. So, that's an example. Shake my hand before you hug me, and then maybe ask permission. May I have a hug? And healthy boundaries let you know who you are as an individual and what needs and feelings and thoughts are yours. And so they help you know and choose what you will and will not do. When I was in high school and I had no boundaries, and especially no boundaries with boys. And again, a boy would hug me, pat my butt, and I, my butt, huh? And I would be so uncomfortable and would freeze. And then I would laugh and be like, hee, it's okay. I'm really uncomfortable. I don't want you to be near me again, and I don't feel safe around you, but I'm going to laugh. And so that was doing the opposite of how I felt. And so boundaries are different. Like, everybody has different boundaries. Everybody has a different feeling of what their boundaries are. And even if we have trouble hearing it or feeling it in our body, part of our mind and our body is aware of what those boundaries are. And it's just a matter of either speaking them and knowing what they are. And they also make interactions with people a lot more smooth and a lot more comfortable in between individuals. Like, how many of us have spent time with our family over the holidays? And if you stayed with your parents and they have a habit of barging into the room and you might be in your towel, and that's crossing a boundary, because especially in families, we have a lot of just banging heads because of crossing boundaries constantly. And so, now we're going to jump on the bed. And so they're tricky because we don't know where our boundaries are until someone's crossed them. And usually when someone's crossed our boundaries, you're most likely going to feel resentment or anger afterwards. I get like that a lot. Like, if somebody's crossed my boundaries, and I might be smiling and really uncomfortable, and then afterwards I'm like, why didn't I stand up for myself? Why didn't I say something? And I don't know if that's happened to you, where you wonder, why did I not defend myself in that situation? And it's because like in the moment we experience this shock, and most of the time, not everybody, but most of the time we do get that freeze. And he's just so cute. And so with that freeze, that freeze is a way for us to try to protect ourselves. When we freeze, it's almost being like an opossum playing dead, where it's like, if I just freeze and don't do anything, then they won't come at me again. And then afterwards, the anger and resentment comes in, and we're like, oh my God. And maybe we play those stories in our head over and over and over again. So so finding out, why we freeze is not so much of a concern as just knowing that it is something that does happen with a lot of people. And again, we don't know our boundaries until they've been crossed. I think he's trying to crush my head. We've been like a... So if you're unable to respond appropriately when your boundaries have been crossed, that is okay. And it's just a matter of starting to tune into your body and notice your signs of discomfort. Somebody crossed a boundary because they did not have your consent. And our boundaries are a way for us to take care of ourselves and say, this is my safe container and this is the line. And when somebody crosses it, it's no bueno. I'm not happy about it. So again, whether you experience the freeze when the boundaries are crossed, it's okay. And it's not something to like beat ourselves up after. And so I wanted to also cover just different types of boundaries that are out there. We've got mental boundaries, and that means that you have the right to your opinions, beliefs, thoughts, and you don't deserve to be made wrong for how you think about something. And a perfect example, by the way, he's trying to twerk for you guys. My little 10-year-old, he saw this video of a man wearing a pantsuit, but short shorts and high heels. And he was like, don't you think your girlfriend is? And the guy's starting to twerk. And Mason thought it was funny. So he's twerking for you guys. But anyways, a perfect example of a mental boundary being crossed is my parents are very political, and my dad had brought up something about an individual who he believes has dementia, and my husband brings up saying, oh, well, this person, has this going on. But because it was against my dad's beliefs, he started to raise his voice. Yeah. And almost yelling to overpower the situation so that my husband could not have a thought that was different than my dad's, and that he didn't have a right to feel that way. And so that's crossing a mental boundary. And my husband was a little taken aback, like, whoa, please don't verbally lynch me for having a different opinion. And, because that's what we're fighting for, right? Is our opinions and our voice and using our voice. And so another example of a boundary is having emotional boundaries, meaning that you have a right to your feelings. You have a right to feel how you feel when you feel them, and not be belittled or convinced that your emotions are wrong. Because it's like we cannot ever compare an incident that happens to me and somebody else and say that maybe they felt more pain or not. And if we can just take responsibility for our emotions and let other people have responsibility for theirs, knowing also when your emotions are yours and when somebody else's emotions are theirs. There's a term coming out there for people who are really sensitive called empath. And that's just a fancy word for psychic and gifts and being able to feel other people's emotions.
I'm gonna use the bathroom.
Okay, go use the bathroom. He's gonna go use the bathroom, everybody. But with these terms and knowing that maybe an individual is more sensitive and can pick up on the emotions of others, it is very important to know what's yours and what's not yours. And then there's energetic boundaries. And energetic meaning that, like in the instance of my father, who got very, very loud and starting to overpower the conversation, he was using his energy and overpowering everything so that there was no way to even have a differing opinion than his. And people will tend to cower, and then of course who Jen here pops in and says, well, I'm not brainwashed like you. But there are people out there, and maybe you've done it yourself, to energetically dominate. Hi, Jenny. And people will cross boundaries by trying to energetically dominate another person. And again, that's another way to cross boundaries. And maybe if you've ever had that boundary crossed, you might feel, you might have not even seen it. They maybe even never said anything or even looked at you a certain way, but perhaps they, just afterwards and after an encounter with this person, you might have felt drained. You might have felt a little resentful, and maybe thinking about the instance over and over and over and over again. And that is because on an energetic level, the boundary was crossed. Yeah, domination. And so there are signs in our body as to when we are having a lack of boundaries or not exercising our boundaries in a healthy way. And one of the number one ways that I see Mason now,
Okay.
just pause, just for a sec, pause. So, but a physical sign on your body, because we do hold things in our body, is if we have a lack of boundaries or we are not expressing our boundaries in a healthy way, they'll be like right below our belly button. I like to call it the cortisol fanny pack, where there's like a pooch. Like you might be the skinniest person and just have like a pooch, that goes around your waist, and you might put your pants on. And again, it looks like a little bit of a fanny pack popping over the edge of the pants. And yes, when we experience stress because our boundaries have been crossed, cortisol dumps into our system and actually goes right into the belly. And that's why, like, a lot of times our bellies might be that one area in the body that that is a little what's that word? I know. But what's that word? Fluffy and doughy. I like the word doughy. And so when we have like that doughy area, there is something in our lives. There's something going on in our lives that we're not exercising boundaries with. So physically, if you're like, I got good boundaries, I'm so good. It's the physical way is to look on your body. You've got good boundaries. Give us a rhyme about boundaries.
Well, boundaries are good. They keep you safe.
That'll be our theme song. Boundaries are good, and they keep you safe. And we'll make a rap about it. But I just wanted to give you that little tip of the cortisol fanny pack is a really good way to know that there's something going on with boundaries, and it's all in our belly. And I also wanted to give you guys just a really quick exercise. To start exercising those boundaries and also just de-stress a little bit. If you have a yoga block, I'm going to use my tissue box as an example as a yoga block. But you just lay on your back and you put it underneath your lower back with your hips up like you're in just a supported bridge pose. And that's actually going to start decompressing your system so that the cortisol literally, it starts to burn belly fat. And so when you start to burn that belly fat and you're just relaxed and you're on your back, you do this for 5 minutes tops. You're going to start to feel a sense of relaxation and a way to tune in. Mason, pause. Because now you're crossing my boundary and you're talking over me. One of my boundaries that I have is that when I'm talking, if somebody speaks over me or interrupts me to put their sentence in, I feel very disrespected. And so, especially in conversations with men, I was in the military and that happened a lot. But I just wanted to give that really, really, really quick tip Super easy, super quick exercise. Putting that block underneath your back is going to get you in a relaxed state to where you can start sensing in your body wherever tension might be. And if you sense tension in the neck or in the shoulders or in your lower back, you're going to start to find areas where you've actually been carrying tension that usually has to do with repressed anger and resentment that you haven't acknowledged from your boundaries being crossed. So that's like just a super quick tip. And again, it's also a belly fat burning exercise where you don't have to exercise. Less is more in this case. So anyways, I wanted to thank you guys for joining me on Friday night, covering affirmative consent and boundaries. And Mason gave perfect examples. So you guys have such a beautiful, beautiful night.
Yeah, and this is not boundaries, this is boundaries.
Yeah. Is there anything that you have to say, Mason, that you would like to say? You can come and stand on the chair. Is there anything that you would like to say as a child?
The only thing I'm good at is... The only thing I'm good at is just the only thing I'm good at is just boundaries.
He's good at boundaries.
And that I'm also good at, and I got...
Well, I'm going to give you guys an example of crossing boundaries, and I did not have consent to do that. So you guys have a beautiful night. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll join us tomorrow, same time, for day 11.